So, Joel, can you talk about the complexity of this role, being a hero, god, villain? The
It was very complicated. I always try and find something to relate to, and this, more than any role I've ever played, was very hard to bring myself to where it ended up needing to be. But I did find some interesting aspects. One is the buying into a myth of yourself. A guy who doesn't quite necessarily believe in the Egyptian system of the gods and the whole pandering to the gods, then becomes pharaoh and assumes the role of a god. And whether he believes that or starts to believe his own myth, I found very interesting. I also found it quite interesting, the concept of placing my mind in that headspace of that it's okay to see other people as different, that I can dominate your race, that I can enslave you. Because to me, the wonderful message of the whole movie, when you push aside the context of it being a biblical story and so on, is that really what the film is about the necessity for us as a human people to see each other in the same light, to treat each other equally, to see that we're all created equally and we should be treated equally.
So, did you meet any dictator or read about any dictator, the current dictators, or when you did this role or prepared?
Funnily enough, while I was shooting the movie, a friend of mine bought me a book that was a coffee table book called Dictators' Homes, with all pictures of really ostentatious sort of settings and paintings and furniture that have been in the home of dictators. There's a real Hitler kind of quality in many ways to Ramesses, especially when you think about, the parallels between, the Holocaust and the dominance of the Jewish race, the Hebrew people in Exodus. I really started to look at it in those terms. At the same time, the beginning of our story starts very differently. It's a relationship, a very close filial relationship between Moses and Ramesses, and that then breaks apart once Ramesses realizes and Moses realizes that Moses is Hebrew, and that there's a point of difference which then sparks his necessity to start a revolution in conjunction with his conversations with God. But essentially, to me, and with all due respect, to push religion aside just for this conversation, is that it's about the ethical stance of one race placing themselves as a higher, in the higher status than another, and the revolution, and that it's possible.
Were you familiar with Ferdinand Marcos in the Philippines, who was a dictator?
Yes. Yeah.
So what did you read about it?
The one person that I did most sort of reading about was both Hitler and also the situation in Indonesia. And, I'd recently, just before I started shooting the film, looked at this documentary, The Art of Killing. And just the kind of blind belief that a person, almost the mind of one person, can then affect the actions of all the people underneath them to create their own laws governing the life and death of an entire community of people based simply on their beliefs or the colour of their skin. And that there, through history, has been terrible situations where those people are not governed by anyone outside of their own nation, which creates a very frightening point of view for anybody who is on the wrong side of those people.
Okay, thank you very much.